Hi, I hope you all had lunch and the great networking lunch actually. Let's start again. Welcome back to you all for the 17th India Digital Summit organized by IMI in association with Google and Message Board. We would like to thank our partner, associate partner Google and Message Board, growth partner Paytm Ads, lanyard partners Kaleyra, conversation media partner Bobble AI, agenda partner Disney Star, track partner TCI, digital transformation partner Accenture Media, and digital India partner Jagran New Media, silver partner Clevertap and AWS, bronze partners Hexawebni, Mool1, Exotel, Notify Visitors, PaySprint, and True Balance. Conversation partner Value First. Let's continue the discussions and learnings. As we know, the digital commerce has evolved a lot in the India in last few years, how it has affected the relationship between the brands and the customers. Let's hear the insights from Mr. Prashant Puri, Edlift, and other speakers joining them are Mr. Ankit Jain, Kaleyra, Mr. Deepak Bakshi, Accenture India, Mr. Harshit Vij, Free Culture, Mr. Pankaj Vermani, Clovia, and Mr. Param Bhargava, the Ayurveda company. Please welcome them to talk, and the theme or the topic for the discussion will be digital commerce transforming brands and relationship.
Some more claps, some more excitement, guys. I know it's after lunch, but hello. Thanks everyone for joining us. Great to be here. We've got industry stalwarts here talking about D2C, what's changed, what's going to change. So we'll make this very insightful, lots of numbers, worth your while. I'm going to start with, just getting everybody warmed up with D2C digital. Let's go around and hear your thoughts on how the consumer and brand relationship has changed in the last 1 year, 2 years, and your thoughts there. Pankaj, let's start with you.
Hi, very good to be here, guys. I think, internet is by far the biggest democracy in the world, right? And what democracy brings is equal opportunity for everyone. So I think what has happened is that this whole equal opportunity has given a lot of starting point for people who had the idea of creating a big brand, but the standard distribution in the industry kind of stopped them to do it. So what we have seen last 4-5 years, and I think next 4-5 years as well, is going to be all about product. It's going to be all about customer. I think initially it was all about distribution. When I would talk to a lot of the senior guys out there, right, and I would talk to them about their company, they would only talk, I'm present at these many outlets. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. But nobody would talk about the product. I think what has changed in the last 2 years is that people have started to focus a lot more on the customer and the product. So I think that is the most beautiful part of this journey that at least what I see.
Param, your thoughts?
So the biggest revolution which D2C in last 2 years has brought is it's the consumer behavior and psyche has changed, right? What Pankaj is saying that the strategy has not changed from distribution only, but because distribution is important, but eventually you have to listen to the consumers, right? So earlier brands used to bring out products as per their product strategy. Now it is consumer product strategy. So people have to listen to the consumers, they have to interact, they have to go back on their canvas, redesign the products, redesign their strategy into what is relevant to this new age India, or if brands want to go global. And then again bring those products with, say, high efficacy or the quality which the new age consumer is looking at. Because now this D2C thing is, where we are always at the, we are very near to the consumer. So they can rip you apart if you are not listening to them. So that's one very big change that has come in, that if they love you, they'll be with you. If they don't love you, they'll hate you to the bottom, right? So they can pull any brand at any moment of the time. So it's very important that how do you listen? The word which we used earlier, this is like social listening, right? Now it's like consumer listening is very important. So D2C is one big channel. So obviously there are a lot of changes that are happening in last 6-10 months in the industry, because again, the cost on direct to consumer channels are high. But at least direct to consumer channels can be looked at a channel in terms of your overall consumer listening strategy?
So I'll take a more holistic perspective. Let's look at the entire ecosystem. Both of you have touched upon the brand side. I think from an industry ecosystem standpoint, there are three broad participants. There is a consumer, and in D2C side, it's obvious that consumer has a lot of say, right? They are able to decide what brands they want, why they want, what kind of expectations they have. They are able to very well settle and express that with the brands, and then of course the brands have the onus to kind of fulfill those. The second part of the ecosystem are the brands themselves, right? So they have now a channel where they can directly reach out to consumers. There are no intermediaries, and the field is open in the way the brand wants to really play with. They decide the competition, the brands can actually choose the channels they want to use, and so on. And the third big participant in this entire ecosystem are the service providers. So whether it's the logistics, whether it's customer service, contact center and whatnot, they also now have a significant play, right? Earlier it used to be a one-way chain of the entire supply chain mechanism and logistics. That has undergone a change significantly as well with D2C coming in. So all-round impact, and I think all the parties, consumer, brand and the service providers are gaining from it.
Yeah, just catching on your thought, I think very rightly said, the ecosystem plays a larger role today to build the brand value, right? What I personally believe is today it's creating relationships, and the relationships are not being created by the product you sell alone, but what is the customer experience or the journey you're building for the buyer and the after sales service you're building. So within that ecosystem, the service providers, the technology stack, the end-to-end conversational piece brings a lot of value, and that's where the digital transformation has happened. And I think the tools which we'll talk about and understand where to use what is very important, and build that emotional relationship on the given channel and the given platform. I think that's where transformation is happening, and brands are building their own journeys and ecosystems around these things.
So I think you've talked about a very important thing, like a relationship with the consumer. So I think, and about the change in the perception in terms of D2C is like purely direct to the consumer. From our example, like at Free Culture, so the change in the perception, what I can talk about is that, and I still remember that the name of that consumer, early stage of our journey at Free Culture. Like he said that I don't want to wear what my father is wearing. I think this change and this perceptional change is something which is very, very outspoken these days. And it's not just our category or innerwear category. I think it's across all the categories, whether it's apparel, whether it's personal care, anything. Like they don't want to do what they have been seeing all their lives. I think that's change, and that's perception is changing. And I think long way to go. Yeah.
Param, you touched upon this point of, customers bringing you down can happen, and we've seen this number of times. So are we at a point where customer experience in India has overtaken price points as a key brand differentiator? Like, is that a front runner now?
So this is a very interesting question. India is still, I don't think so, a very, they are very open with having good price points, because India is still very price conscious. So India and Indian consumers are now, so it's a consumer economy completely. So eventually experience, they want an experience, they want a very great product, and they also want at the right prices. So, and the best offers. So why still e-commerce is, driving larger sales? It's because of the discounting habit that has gone into them, right? So as a founder, I would, to the whole industry, I would really like to suggest that, if premium and luxury brands typically stay away from discounting and have much larger and better, gross margins or net margins, it's because they are making their consumers habitual of that price points. Even at our price points, when direct to consumer brand, the largest differentiator is the quality. Because each of the brand like a Clovia or a TAC or Free Culture, the biggest differentiator that we are trying to bring a great quality product at typically the right price points for the consumers. So still, because we are in a rush to grow, we are heavily discounting that quality product. So consumers in India are at that luxury in terms of buying a very good product. An immense number of brands are now available which are offering, but they still want to have a discount or an offer that's a kick for the buying. So if, as a collective, the brands also try and say that if I'm trying to stick to my quality and I really do not want to discount, there is still a large market because people are very willing to accept a great quality product. So eventually, the habit is still discount-led. So that's where there is still that bigger gap, that how do you ensure that consumers first buy quality and then buy the discount. Right now, e-commerce is still struggling at that end, which has been, it has been seeded into the buyers, that because if you see Amazon, Flipkart, or the larger marketplaces, the larger sales of Big Billion Day sales and all of those events are so large as compared to their regular BAU days, because they are habitual of buying at discounts. So definitely next 4, 5 years, 6 years, we'll have a large change where the habit forming of quality will become the forefront. But currently, last 2 years, 3 years is a major disruption that has happened in D2C. It's still discount-led. Currently, it is still discount-led.
So you touched upon marketplace, right? Sort of a necessary evil, can't live without. Pankaj, let's hear your thoughts here. Like, if someone's starting D2C, what are some of the pros and cons on going direct to consumer, your own app, your own website, versus flirting with the Flipkarts, Amazon, doing both? What would you advise?
Right. I think before I touch on that, I just want to quickly add to what Param so beautifully explained. I think India is a very beautiful place, right? I mean, so where does the explosion happen? Where the aspiration goes high and the price comes down. It's that intersection where the real, and we've seen it with the smartphone industry, right? That's how it's blossomed. So I think that price factor will always be there, but people who are more closer to my age, not the Gen Zs, right? How many products where you found the value proposition high, not the pricing high, very value proposition high, but the service was shitty, How many of those old ones, there was time when you were still living with them, and now you've kind of stopped putting your foot down and said, yeah, I'm not going to do this anymore, right? So I think that flip has happened while this continues. So that's a beautiful place. I think from a marketplace perspective, necessary evil, beautiful terminology. See, I think it's nothing new. If we look at it from a brand's perspective, as to who we are. Large format stores, the lifestyles and shopper stops, the worlds were always there, right? So it was always an exclusive brand versus a large format. I think from a brand, the most important part is people, when we, in our early days, people used to call us an online brand, right? Before we got heavily offline as well. And I would very quickly point out, either you call me online or you call me a brand, because if you're attaching me to a channel, then I'm channel-led, not brand-led, right? So I think it's a brand's job, it's a brand's thesis, it's a brand's dharma and karma to be anywhere and everywhere the customer is, provided it's not impacting their customer service / experience in a negative way. It's maintaining your gross margins, right? And it's delivering the right output to your business, right? As long as these checkboxes are checked, I keep telling my team that, you can even go, and be a street hawker if it makes sense to get to your customer, but the brand experience and the brand perception will change, so you can't do that because that's one checkbox that doesn't check. So I think it's a necessary evil, definitely. But the more hops you add, the farther it takes you away from your customer. The most important thing is how close can you get to your customer, because today the Gen Zs of the world are very, very restless. They are young, and I was talking to on a panel the other day, and I was saying that earlier, the customer used to keep the brand on their feet. Today they keep them on their thumbs, right? I mean, that's how it's changed. So I think we got to be super, super close to the customer to take fast actions. But at the same time, we cannot discount a channel. We cannot discard a channel, because that's where the customer is, and you should be there. It's your karma to be that.
Harshit, your thoughts here?
So just wanted to add on, basically, the whole perception like we were talking about. The new generation, they have drastically moved with respect to how they want to even have their purchase with respect to whether it's pricing, whether it's brand or anything, how they want to control how they want to, how they want to interact with the brand, how they want to, the services they're looking at, the kind of amount what they are paying. They want to have their they want to kind of have each penny what they spend, they want to have leverage of that. Whether it's the kind of customer services they get, the kind of product they get, the kind of packaging they get, because they've spent and they want to take all the leverages. I think like in the online, so we don't do offline as of now. We're purely online as of now. In fact, marketplaces, so we are almost 50-50, like 50% on our own web store and 50% on the different marketplaces. But the leverage what marketplaces gives you is the visibility. That's something which, as of now, it takes time to build that on your own web store. So that's one plus point. Even if all the brands, obviously, we pay commissions to the marketplaces, but I think that's a commission for the visibility what the brand is asking for.
So driving sales faster, you go marketplace. Building a brand long-term vision, you have to kind of do that at your own.
Prashant, if I can add one thing onto the marketplaces side and on the brand building. See, first is like in India, it's important that everyone understands it has to be an omni-channel play. You cannot leave any channel because India is such a large and diversified country, and consumers are everywhere across, right? So brand needs to define its moat, and then if one has to be really successful in building a strong brand, it has to be a price point parity. So even if you are driving sales through your marketplaces, they are necessary evil, but they have billions of traffic, right? So you cannot leave them. So the best way to manage and scale the business is that you have a price comp, which is a very vastly used terminology in our businesses, that you have comparable prices across channels. Let the buyer decide from which marketplace they are comfortable buying with, and you can have a slightly better price points on your own website. So if they start believing that your direct to consumer channel is a great service channel, they will come back to you on your D2C channel and buy it.
That's a super point.
I would like to add, sorry, just 1 second. Because, even online buying is a trust factor, right? That plays a very important role. Still these days, people do have some, at the back of their mind, whether shopping from a D2C web store like directsome.com, whether their money is safe, their transaction is safe and everything. They trust marketplaces higher, right? Obviously. I think that's something helps. Even now, with the tools and the new companies who are coming in, the easy checkout pages or elements which are being used. So I think that's also building a perception in the consumer that they're shifting their purchases from trusted partners like Amazon or something. They want to kind of go towards direct.com as well.
So Deepak, a question for you. We, behind the scenes, we talked about tools that Accenture's working on. I was reading somewhere, we're at a time where 90% of the consumers want a personalized experience. They would go back to a brand, they would go back to an app, they would go back, they would love customized, email marketing, all of that. So from your perspective, what is Accenture doing? What are some of the tools that you've worked with your brands which have really helped take customization and personalization for your consumers to the next level?
See, the whole premise of D2C is that the brands are able to directly connect to the consumers. Now, how would that connect happens is essentially based on the customer's data. And it takes us into a different realm of conversation in terms of personal data and the cookies or the lack of it that's going to happen and so on. But irrespective, if a customer is willing to share information that he or she believes is going to help choose the right product and the brand and the associated services, they will. And the whole premise then is how the brand utilizes that data to essentially get to that degree of personalization, right? Now, there are multiple tools, multiple platforms available. There are analytics that can be done on top of that. There are, of course, AI ML solutions that can be built to address the specific needs that a brand has and also that a consumer has. Because eventually what what is a win-win situation in this game, in this D2C, is that the brands are able to really identify what are the needs of a consumer, where is competition playing, hence what's the white space, what's that exclusivity that a brand can actually take to the consumers, right? That's from this side of the table. The other side of the table from consumer perspective is I have choices available. In every category, every product, every service, there are choices available. Which product and hence which brand I choose has to be merited based on a few factors. And if the communication from the brand to a consumer can be very pointed, very targeted, specific to the needs and interest of the consumer, the entire engagement becomes valuable for both the parties, right? That's what it is. The second point I'll add is this entire piece also, and linking to the e-com marketplace discussions as well, I think that becomes important for us to use technology and build brands, use marketing technology, data technology, personalization, AI, ML to build brands, is to fight the battle of search, right? With products that are emerging and on marketplaces, etc., I think that the time will be very soon when your brand recall essentially drives the sale on search. Because if you're searching for a product, you will have a number of choices, and in marketplaces, essentially, you are at the disposal of the search engine algorithm, if you will, right? Whether you get shown up or down may actually hamper your sales. And hence, the technology and analytics become a very important part there as well.
Ankit, you want to add on how Kaleyra does this?
Yeah, certainly. He spoke a lot, over the top on how technology and different channels are playing a huge role in driving sales, driving engagement, driving brand loyalty. So Kaleyra comes from a CPaaS ecosystem, right? CPaaS is communication platform as a service. You have message word, you have value first here, you have Kaleyra here. Why are we here, right? Because I think we started off as a pure messaging gateway provider, right? You send SMSs and you drive traffic, or you drive your sale, or you drive a notification or an OTP. That was the start of communication. But you see over the last 2 decades how communication stack has evolved. Today, you can complete a whole shopping journey within a WhatsApp window, right? That's creating brand experience. That's creating brand value. You mentioned Gen Z. What does a Gen Z want today, right? If he likes a brand, he wants to keep repeating a purchase, how easy are you making it for him to buy that product? And if I can kind of complete a checkout in 5 clicks, build a cart on WhatsApp and then do the payment within the whole window, that's a channel you've added, and that works best for a D2C brand, right? Having said that, what are the different tools and different channels brands are using? We spoke about marketplace versus being direct to the consumer. How and why did marketplaces get to that point where they have this traffic coming onto the website? Because they were visible. People got that experience, people got that end-to-end customer service, right? Today with CPaaS players like us, you get SMS, you get voice, you get video, you get WhatsApp, you get Messenger, you get Instagram. So you have the channels. Now how you leverage it into the whole stack, connect it to your customer service desk, give them that experience, that personalized relationship. There were points being touched about personalized approach. Every communication which goes out needs to be personalized. But now CPaaS companies like us are going a step forward, using big data, using ML, using AI, using data science to give you what you want at the right time, at the right place, at the right, on the right channel, right? If brands and D2C brands can leverage that, I don't see why that 50% cannot become 70% or 80% on your website, right? So that's what CPaaS players like us are enabling, even in the B2C space and the B2B space as well. So all the logistics, all the other solution providers to a brand are also connected entirely on a communication stack for the last mile. So I think that's where we are adding a lot of value to this ecosystem.
Got it. Question for you, Pankaj and Param, and others also feel free to jump in. With omni-channel kicking in, multiple touch points, we're still seeing cart abandonment rate, upwards of 85%. I'm sure it keeps a lot of you guys up at night. What are the pros and cons of working with this number, reducing it, as you think of going brick and mortar, right? So you've got digital, you've got that whole digital system in place. We've seen so many brands now take that leap of starting digital first, but then moving to brick and mortar. What are some of the pros and cons on doing this?
So I think it's very interesting to see cart abandonment between online and offline. I think there's a phenomenal way of thinking. See, offline conversion, for example, in our exclusive outlets, right? I mean, we have a 63 to 64% conversion, which is huge, right? I mean, if I were to get this conversion on online, I mean, yeah, I would be probably wearing a gold suit or something, right? So it's a very different ballgame altogether. But the way to look at it, at least from our perspective, and I think the problem with entrepreneurs is die-hard optimism, and I think which also becomes our bayonet point of time, is that if a person is engaged with your cart, right, boss, you got his, or in our case, her eyeballs, right? That's huge. So I think somebody walking into a brick and mortar store is in itself a very big activity, right? Because the person would have got dressed up, the person has come into your store, then even trials is a big thing, right? So for example, trial conversion is almost 85% for us. So if somebody's gone into a trial room, it's a job to make sure it converts. So I think that's a very different ballgame. It's a very different journey. But when it comes to the online, it's the game of volumes. So if I could bring like 40 people or 35 people in my store in a day, can I bring like 300,000 onto my website? In our case, for example, it's 1 million. And there now, how do you ensure that at least some percentage of them would just hit the cart? If they have hit the cart, then stalwarts like yourself are out there to support us in some ways or the other to make it convert eventually, right? So I think whenever there's an add to cart happening, I look at it as an opportunity and not abandonment as a lost business, right? Because every time I convert, it's only adding to my bottom line in some ways.
Maybe if I jump in there on just one point Pankaj you made. I think it's also, if you bring in a little bit of maths to it, right? So in a physical setup, the customers are actually walking into the store with a very strong intent. They'll walk into a store that I want to get into a clothier store and I'm looking for the products and hence the intent is much stronger. On the digital stores, D2C or e-com for that matter, it's a lot driven by exploration and search as well. And that's where even on the D2C side, I think some of you might agree that a lot of players are actually pushing for apps versus M-site or website, predominantly because app means you're having a higher intent to really look for the product or the brand. If it's on purely a search base, getting into a marketplace, then you are exploratory. So the denominator becomes bigger and the conversion, of course, is not 60s, but that's a fundamental difference. I think you're catching the intent and that's where the data analytics come into play thereafter.
So, both points are actually true for every brand. So cart abandonment is an issue for sure because post the changes that are also happening on the digital system, the iOS updates or probably the going forward Google updates, the quality of traffic also is something which you cannot determine, right? Because your advertising is not very as per the kind of cohorts you want to drive, right? So there is a certain large component of consumers that come you don't really know the intent, right? The retail touch points are everywhere you have a massive conversion rate because there is a clear intent to purchase. But digitally, you really don't know the intent of the buyers. But at least the funnel then plays a very critical role. The MOF, BOF, TOF, these three, which customers to target and how to target and how to personalize or do, say, a certain gamification to re-market and retarget those consumers. Right? So eventually, there has to be a strong team to look at what kind of cart abandonment data you are getting, what kind of quality of consumers you are getting, and what kind of messaging needs to go at funnel level. So there would be different consumers in different funnels, different stages of your intent, because there will be a lot of customers in the top, but everyone is not a buyer, right? So there has to be certain tools or products that you use where you gauge which is slightly towards your TG and has a higher chance of conversion. And then you deploy technology or different modes of advertising to bring them back and convert a consumer. Because first purchase is definitely one of the toughest, right?
One interesting anecdote, I was speaking to a customer, and customers got very smart. Huh? They would say, I was speaking to somebody and I was saying that, why do you kind of, just add things to cart and then disappear, right? And this was a very, informal conversation. I knew the person very well. They said, it's very cool, I would just put it in the cart and go 24 hours later, I'll get a discount coupon and then I'll buy. So you got to be very careful also that, how do you got to convert, and the intent was not to buy or to buy, and, kind of fool the system.
Which
So
I think
analytics play a
in this
key
case isn't, we're now, 10 years into this whole personalized e-commerce, and everyone's kind of figured that out. So I think that itself, like you said, adding something to the cart isn't really, abandonment rate is really not bad. It's not a bad thing. You've got someone there. Similarly, someone saying, I'll wait for the coupon is great, right? Because they've come back to you. So we're looking at it as the glass half full versus empty. Harshit, do you want to add to this? Any points on?
No. So I think everything has been said, but I purely agree with Pankaj. And in fact, we keep on talking to our consumers. That's one of the top reasons of our AB cards. One of the top reasons that पता है कि मतलब 24 घंटे तो बहुत दूर हो गया, अब 15 मिनट में coupon code आ जाता है. I mean, that's something which is, and other than that, in fact, like जैसे बोलते हैं customer भगवान है. अब भगवान आ गया है आपकी कार्ट में, अब उसको छोड़ के जाना मतलब हमारी गलती है. Like somehow it has to be converted with tools, with the personalization, with respect to messages or anything. Calls, to be honest, at Free Culture, we have one customer care representative specifically because we have seen that once the consumer has come in, the intent is there anyhow. Usko kisi bhi tarike se, because then we have paid some money as well to kind of get that consumer, unless that has come on their own. We even try and schedule a call with that consumer. Like पहले हम लोग करते थे, सीधा call करते थे, तो पता चलता था. The consumer gets irritated as well, right? So we schedule, that person schedules a call, tells them about the feedback, about the product, the quality, how Free Cultures in a way are different from the other leading players in the market or the offline markets and all. So जाने नहीं देना है. That's how I think that's how we all, as I think every founder works like that, कि customer आ गया तो भेजना ही नहीं है, कुछ भी हो जाए. Leech की तरह.
So we've talked a lot about the customers coming into the website, abandonment rate, conversion rate. If someone's starting this off, right, and if I was to ask all of you, how would you rank channels? I have 100 rupees to spend. Okay, I'm just starting off.
यही सही है. Reliance को बेचा. यही बताएं.
Everyone's at different stages, right? So like where would you put money behind? Is it organic? Is it search? Is it meta? Influencer marketing? Like obviously it depends on so many other factors. So it's not a simple answer. But in your experience, how should someone really ramp up spends to get the customer in, get that cart filled across the different channels and options that we today have?
So I'm actually the worst person because I'm the oldest, right? But having said that, I think it's a very, very, very pertinent question, and a lot of founders we get the opportunity to speak to, mentor. We're fortunate that way. I think this is a very, very regular question that all of us kind of ponder over. See, again, for any brand's life cycle, there are two stages that at least I feel, and I could be absolutely wrong because everybody has their own very clear journey, right? At least in the online space, either you go to a place where the eyeballs are and give a margin for that, right? Because that is a more short place to be. And then you bring the eyeballs to you because that's a more expensive opportunity, right? And this has been valid in offline and online spaces both, unless you've started as a SME, single store business, which over a period of 20 years kind of, evolved into a series of chain of, exclusive outlets. So I think it's also a function of what you want to do. What is the stage of your journey ke saath saath, where do you want to be, right? So if I want to be for example, I would say if you're a great product, right? And if you were to start a lingerie brand today, right? And if I was to start today, then there could be 3 ways for me to do it. I start my Kaleyra.com again. I go to the marketplaces, I go to lifestyles and your shopper stops and Reliances of the world and say, mera saman rakh lo. Or it could be, fourth could be, I could open my own exclusive outlet, right? Yahi 4 options hain. So I think it's a function. If you want to grow faster, then you'll have to go to places where the volumes are and then find a way. For example, when we started our business, not many people know, we actually started, we hadn't started Clovia first. We started by going to television channels, those TV shopping networks, just to build volumes, because we did not have, it was a chicken egg situation. Everybody would keep saying कि volume होगा तभी will produce for you, right? So what we did was we went to television shopping networks. We as founders, my co-founders, women were actually selling product on these television shopping. एक घंटे में हम 1 crore का धंधा करते थे. Then that would create the volume for us, and then we would go back to people and say, यार अब ये बना रहे हो तो मेरा माल भी साथ में बना दो, So that's the hack you have to always deploy. But first step is to go to place where the eyeballs already exist, and next step should be to go to places where you can bring in the eyeballs, because bringing in eyeballs is more expensive. Very, very high level answer, but it's a very complex question with a lot of caveats to it, right? So, that's the only way to generalize this, at least in my perspective.
Param, what do you think?
So definitely, so the times have really changed these last 2 years. So, and specifically the category we are in, it's currently India's most competitive, cluttered, and highest CAC category, right? Beauty, personal care, and wellness. And where for us, it's slightly different. We are not very heavily dependent on direct-to-consumer channel, because CAC for a beauty is trending upwards of 750 rupees right now. So where you're at a price point where we operate, our AOV is like lesser than that, right? So definitely every order level also we are burning. Forget about the number of consumers that have to be brought in, right? So eventually, for an entrepreneur who wants to start, it needs to look at what problem they are trying to solve. So it has to be, again, brand building effort going in from, say, an Instagram or a Facebook, that any of our products are trying to solve a certain XYZ problem. Specifically, any unique problem-solving products have slightly better CACs right now, because if the product solves very unique problems, are able to catch consumers' eye, right? And then other channels have to go in parallel, because that channel specifically acts as a brand building channel for you, and other channels start behaving as an acquisition channel. Because typically for a new website, consumers are third or fourth time primarily they get onto buying. Similarly, like email marketing has gone beyond a 10, 11 emails now, right? At least 10th and 11th email is where a conversion happens, right? So eventually it has to be a function of 360-degree marketing effort, where Instagram and Facebook will help you in a brand building effort, and acquisition has to be driven by other marketplaces.
Harshit, Deepak.
I'll just maybe add
that.
a perspective. I think eventually from a metric perspective, CAC, is the customer acquisition cost is the key one, right? Now, over a period of time, businesses are able to collect data that will allow you to identify where you are able to hit the volumes, right? And which channels are really responding well to what type of campaigns you have run and so on. So the intelligence over a period of time needs to be built, and that is brand specific, category specific. There isn't a silver bullet on that right away. But that's very key part. Having said that, that's one side of where you want to reduce the customer acquisition cost. The second angle is essentially brand building. Once you are in that journey, you've launched a new product or a series of products, brand building itself will take a serious cognizance of what channels your TG is and where do you really want to get to. So there is a bit of an art and a science mix into this which will come to play.
I think there's one thing which founders should, or anyone starting a new venture or something should invest in, is into content building. That is something which I mean, we also started when we started 3 years back. We started with content, and we were the first brand, men's innerwear, to kind of come launch with a video, video ad or something. But for the first 12 months, we did not invest much on content building. I think content is something, obviously everyone will do Facebook ads, Google ads, other channels will go to marketplaces, but I think content is something which people should invest in. That's very important from day one, or either come on Shark Tank, I think.
Okay, so I think we're close to the session, and I'd love to open it up for questions. I just got one last question, and I don't think in this day and age we can close the session without not mentioning AI and ChatGPT. So I'm going to throw that in for all of us. How are you guys thinking about it? How is it going to bring in efficiencies? What are some of the things at Clovia, at Ayurveda company, at Accenture that you guys are now having those conversations that in 2023 to 2024, I'm going to leverage these tools, or I'm going to, test these out to help bring more efficiencies across the board? We can go this way.
So, very interesting anecdote. We were having a bottom line discussion, like it was a 4-hour conversation, marathon meeting. And then after that, my CFO sends me a screenshot with, I asked ChatGPT, how should I improve my bottom line? These are the 5 suggestions. So, of course, we had done a decent job by not fighting with ChatGPT there. So, I think a business has 2 aspects, right? One is hunting, other is harvesting. I'm talking purely from a brand perspective, right? Or in fact, for me, business. So hunting is where you spend the money to get somebody, and harvest is when you get repeat business, right? Hunting is a function of marketing, right? How well you marketed, how well you were able to present your story to the, how beautiful your whole story, your whole presentation is to the end customer to actually get excited about you. Harvesting is when the product kicks in, right? Whether your product is good enough for the person to come back without your bullshit, right? Because you can do a lot of bullshitting in the hunting part, you can't do bullshitting in the harvesting part. So I think that's how you divide. Businesses get made by harvesting, right? Businesses don't get made by constant hunting, because most of the CACs today, because of all the challenges that have come into the place, will always be negative in some ways, or at best case scenario will be CM2 profitable. I've spoken to some of the most senior guys in the industry, and say they were profitable, and then more I ask, so either it'll be CM1, CM1.5, it's not even going to be CM2. So yeah, it's new conversations emerging now. So I think it's a function of how do you kind of harvest, and that's where the tools and the AIs, that come into play, which was very rightly pointed out by Visual, that what we do, for example, we have deployed intelligence at 2 parts, right? I won't even call it AI, it's big data, right? Which is now developing some sort of self-learning. It's not even huge data enough for me to, say that it's big data. But what we did it is on the planning side of things. We said, okay, customer customization, of course, a lot of third parties which we are able to use, and we are able to use our own brain also to build the profile. But what we started doing is we started planning better using our big data, and that is what gave our business the edge, because we have 40 sizes in a product. It's a hugely complex category, right? A single SKU is 40 sizes. Imagine if you have to do a bottle of 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50, right, ml. So I think that's where big data played a very big role for us. So I think you have to decide what part of your harvesting you can deploy certain tools, and then kind of focus on those, because hunting beyond a certain point will always be expensive, however hard you try. So that's how we chose our battle. I always say that, the biggest mistake Hitler made was he fought battles on 2 fronts at the same time. So we pick our battles, we fight those, we fight a harvesting battle, and that has worked very well for us.
So Prashant, like for us also, and for everyone in general, use of these technology is a function of what stage of your business is at, right? AI typically, and when we come to ChatGPT for sure will have a deep impact in global businesses. So for example, my co-founder, made me aware about this ChatGPT. I was not aware, because she said I have not been able to hire content writers because the cost is going up. And now, so we have replaced, and most of content writing is happening through ChatGPT. My performance team, one of the guys is standing there. So his ad copies are now being done by ChatGPT. So these are very small, slight, starting points, so which shows there is a huge impact that it'll have in the businesses going forward, right? Because a lot of things will get automated, and they'll be better, because when you think, and if it's thinking like a human, right? So it's a very strong tool to have in your kitty. So overall, businesses would definitely have a large, but it also has a side effect that it can also eat away a lot of jobs, right? So that's a very blurred line to be very careful about. And as far as data and AI is concerned, so we might be a 100 crore company right now. We have to work on it, but we have not really gone very aggressive in understanding consumer data, because our stage of business and the category where we operate, it's a 240,000 crore market, right? So it's a very large TAM which we currently are working for, right? So That's why I said it's a very staged approach, and it's an investment also, because if you want to apply certain, so we do analytics, which is like very relevant to the business. But if I want to go deeper into, say, doing a market research or a deeper, say, agar 1 million traffic aa raha hai, main usko pura analyze karoon. We have not started doing that as a company level right now.
Deepak, yours.
So I'll say, see, the digital is a space where innovation is a given. It'll happen. Your newer channels, newer technologies, newer ways of working, all of that will evolve continuously, constantly. We've seen that in the past. That continues even today. Why limit to only ChatGPT? There is Meta. And then I believe the next section after us is ONDC. So there's a new channel also coming in. A lot of people are unaware, and we talk to the brands. They'll have a perspective on that. So it's a reality. See that all these technologies, these innovations, these channels are for the betterment of the industry overall. There are multiple use cases that one can think of today. There are use cases that will evolve over a period of time as the maturity of these technologies also happen, right? We're already talking with a few clients who want to set up their D2C in metaverse. Forget about the app and the M site and the website. It's a very different game. It's already being piloted in the few Western countries, and you can have your food delivered while you're still playing, and everything happens in metaverse. Is a use case, right? Now, ChatGPT could be looked at on the content side. It would have use cases, already have use cases on customer service and support side. It has use cases, well, within the organization as well in multiple roles and functional areas. So it will evolve. There is going to be a different utilization of these technologies as I see, and I think eventually at the end of the day, it's a question of benefiting the brands and the businesses. So it'll play its role.
So we look at this in a very different way, right? For us, it's not which chat platform or which chat, is it ChatGPT or any other platform. For us, it's a simple thing, it's a bot, right? Now, where will the bots come handy, or where will the chat bots come handy? And then where does data science and AI and ML come in handy? So I think we work with more than 3,000 brands or enterprises or companies, you call it, across the globe. 85% of the volumes are still driven by messaging. When I say messaging, it might be SMS, it might be WhatsApp and email, right? And the rest 5% is driven by voice and bots and things like that. But post-COVID, a lot of investments are happening in the bot space, the chatbot space. Now, where you use it, how you use it is up to the brand, because that's where what kind of experience you want to build and what's the optimization you want to bring in to your different processes. So yes, it's not about ChatGPT, it's about how you leverage the technology. We spoke about omni-channel. There was multi-channel before, now it's omni-channel. It's about integrating these different channels and making the right use of these channels. That's how I would put across for the brands.
Harshit, anything you want to add here?
Yeah, I think everything is being said, but still, I think one thing over all these AI tools and elements, and obviously they are cost optimized. It makes, saves you money. But I think personalization is something which is there over chat GPTs of the world, over all the AIs and everything. A consumer needs personalization for sure, overall chat. That's what I feel, that's what we've seen. Yeah.
I was reading somewhere that, in just about 2.5 months, there are about 300 different companies that have built APIs. They have a SaaS model in place. It's moving at rocket speed. So thanks, everyone. We can open up for questions. Happy for anyone to ask questions and direct them to the panelists here. Going once. Anyone going twice? Yes, the gentleman up front.
So I heard a lot about customer acquisition focus. How are you guys thinking in terms of customer engagement, ongoing retention and repeat of business coming back to you?
It's a very, this is like explaining the entire business, so it's a very big question, but frankly, to kind of, summarize it in some ways, as you rightly pointed out, the content, for example, has played a very interesting role today. We have a very interesting content team, all youngsters. So our whole thought process was engagement. I'm just talking engagement right now. Was that our category requires a lot of education. Education, by the nature of it, is boring, right? And nobody wants boring today, right? Nobody wants to be preached, especially the newer generation. You try and preach them for 30 seconds, you have lost their interest. They're looking elsewhere. So I think our whole thought process was, can you make it fun and educate at the same time, right? So when we were trying to explain the importance of a bra, we started talking about should be supportive, should not be too clingy and all that. All along, the girl was thinking it's boyfriend, and then we said, we're talking about bra. So those are the kind of things that you can make fun and at the same time kind of, communicate to the end customer. So I think that's one lever that we have used to engage, because people come back for that engagement, and in the process, they, the kind of brand brushes its aura to the end customer, and that's how, and of course, the product has to, assuming with that baseline that the product is anyways there and doing its job, that then you keeping that messaging going to them again and again as to, why this is relevant to you and things like those. So it's a combination of both. It's product and constant reminder in a fun way is how we have taken this story to be.
Anyone else wants to add?
So, nothing can happen without engagement and attention, right? Because now engagement is the hook to acquire consumers, right? Because even first acquisition is not a guaranteed acquisition at an LTV level, right? So eventually you need to keep the acquired consumers as well as non-acquired consumers engaged to your brand. And there are many channels to do that. That's what we have been discussing, how do we keep them engaged via your social media or your YouTube or your different forms of content now. Messaging is heavily dependent on WhatsApp suddenly, where a lot of engagement questions are going. Gamification is a way to keep your acquired, non-acquired consumers hooked to you. Definitely, on the retention side, it's like there everyone is now more focused, because as the rising CACs are, hurting everyone's, say bottom line, and global macroeconomic, situations are also telling the VC world to make their brands or founders more focused on profitability. So retention is important, because at least on a bare minimum cohort level, if your focus is 30-35% retention, then only you start, reducing. So on retention, and again, we have tools which help us in, acquiring and retaining those customers and hook to. So retention, obviously, the first point where we started is the product quality, right? That is where the D2C brands are different. Their product quality is itself very, very different as compared to the old legacy brands. So AER is the concept where we work. This is AIR, called acquisition, engagement, and retention, right? So they go hand in hand now. No big brand or any brand can be built without this AIR, right? So it has to happen.
Hello, everyone. So we've been talking a lot about engagements and bottom line marketing evils. So this is the question to every D2C brand out there, is how brands are leveraging influencer marketing. Is it something that is really helping the brand or creating some kind of a FOMO, or is it really some results that the brands are expecting out of influencer marketing? Has UGC really helped brands in reaching out to the right target audience? Are the right KPIs in place for the brands to really go ahead, or we have seen a major shift in terms of the influencer marketing budgets growing, and also at times it's compared to performance marketing. So how do you see this? Do brand really want to look at influencer marketing as something which only contributes to the top of the funnel, or is it something that can actually go down and help drive conversions for the brands?
If you want to take a strategic play of influencer marketing being your scale lever, I think that's something that should not be done. I think it's not a scalable ROI generator. It's a great RMI. It's a great tool for, so the return of marketing investment is high if you have the right people who can communicate to the right people. But if you were to think of it in a way that I can scale like my performance marketing, is it another Google AdWords for you? I personally believe that ship has sailed. It's too late in the day. The same person who was probably charging 20,000 rupees is upwards of 3 lakh, 4 lakh rupees today. And the ROI doesn't make sense anymore, at least in that. And I'm being very blatant about it because it's an ROI question you asked. But having said that, I think the jury is still out. There are a lot of things that haven't happened in India which have happened globally. Live hasn't happened that hot in India yet.
The way it is happening in China.
It's gonna, and there is no way that it's not gonna explode in India. It's eventually gonna happen. People have tried doing that. I think we're a little early in the game there. But when it happens, India catches up. Like, we skip generations. हम 2G से सीधा 4G जाते हैं. 3G 3G हमें नहीं समझ आता. That's what we do. So the day we feel that, live is gonna be huge, within a few months, we'll be leaps ahead of the West and the East, who is doing great over there. So I think the jury's still out for certain aspects, but in its current form, I don't think it's a scalable ROI math.
So it also very dependent upon category to category. Yeah. So a category like us, beauty, her influencer 50 brand market kar raha hai, right? So if you want to divide, if you have a budget also, you'll have to divide it into brand and performance. And performance, the ROI would be now much lower than FB and Google also, very, very clearly. So any top influencers, the way Pankaj was mentioning, the prices have gone 10x, right? So social commerce, which is like the video-led approach, is something that needs to be figured out. There is no solid product as of now. Eventually, TikTok is driving better sales in US as compared to the Instagram there. So eventually there has to be a substitute or a TikTok relaunching in India, because right now it is heavily skewed to one platform and one tech company, leveraging everything. So, and that's why one platform is also making influencers charge heavily. So until there is a platform level competition that comes up, there will not be rationalization of influencer marketing. Influencers is the way to create a brand, because you, end of the day, the TG, which is now live 18 to 35, but also the 45 to 60 is also very active on Insta, right? So उनको brand building के लिए समझ में आता है, but acquire करने के लिए it has become a very costly channel.
Plus also I think when you're talking about ROI and performance, today Google and Meta is so trackable because they built the tools for you. You can set up an ad and you can pretty much figure out impressions, cost per click, AOV, all of that stuff. For some reason, they haven't done it for Meta, right? So the minute they switch that on, and I think it's just a switch, like I think Facebook came out and said now they're going to start charging for the blue ticks, right? So they're also looking at more ways of making more money and making Wall Street happy. So with influencer marketing budgets going upwards of 7 to 10%, which is where it is currently globally, these guys are going to introduce those tools, and at that point, it can become a more trackable ROI tool versus now, where now, if you're doing it, to Pankaj's point, the KPIs have to be very different. So it doesn't mean that you won't do it, but there's no scale, and if you're using the same KPIs, then you're pretty much gonna, it's not gonna be lucrative for you.
I'll just add on to this. You talked about UGC. I think even the Indian consumer is smart these days, right? They know influencer marketing brands, they pay money to influencers to kind of influence their product. But I think the core influence is your own consumer, right? That's how you do net promoter scores and everything. That I think UGC plays a very important role, and specifically someone who has used your product is talking about. That's an actual promoter, because influencers and the way we've talked about the cost has gone so high. And but real influencers are your own consumers, and doing UGCs, their own videos and testimonials and everything, I think that gives you better ROI than kind of investing in influencers. But for visibility and everything, because they have followers and everything, I think still is an important thing to do. But UGC is much better than that. That's what I feel.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Thank you. Thanks, panelists.
Thank you so much for a knowledgeable session. Also, there's a 5 minutes gap. You guys can have tea, coffee, and get back to the place, and then we will start with the next session.